Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone, and bringing your love and light. I feel guided to start with some gems from Lesson 62. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. It is your forgiveness, relinquishment of judgment, that will bring the world of darkness to the light. It is your forgiveness that lets you recognize the light in which you see. Forgiveness is the demonstration that you are the light of the world. Through your forgiveness, does the truth about yourself return to your memory. Therefore, in your forgiveness, relinquishment of judgment, lies your salvation. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Gloria. Well, we are still in the choice series with the master teacher, and what you were just reading and sharing from the lesson goes very well with that episode. The choice series has 26 episodes, and we will tune into the 24th, and it has the title The Substitute Reality. We are still in chapter 18. The subtitle of the video is a quasar of light in an eternal moment of love. And he will bring in for us some passages also of chapter 18 of the 6th section, Beyond the Body, and the light in the dream, which is the 3rd section. We will listen to the first part of that episode. Second part I can just recommend too, because it goes a little bit more into the science, putting out the question, are you a hologram, and looking at what scientists have found out around black holes, and master teacher is bringing that in the context of your own experience and realization of self. So without any further ado, let's just start that video and hope that there will be no black box today anywhere in the picture. Thank you for being here.
This about beyond the body. There is nothing outside you. That is what you must ultimately learn, for it is the realization that the kingdom of heaven is restored to you. For God created only this, and he did not depart from it nor leave it separate from himself. The kingdom of heaven is the dwelling place of the Son of God, who left not his Father and dwells not apart from him. Listen, heaven is not a place nor a condition. It is merely an awareness of perfect oneness, and the knowledge that there is nothing else, nothing outside this oneness, and nothing else within. What could God give but knowledge of himself? And what else is there to give? The belief that you could give and get something else, something outside yourself, has cost you the awareness of heaven and of your own identity. And you have done a stranger thing than you yet realize. You have displaced your guilt to your body from your mind. Yet a body cannot be guilty, for it can do nothing of itself. You who think you hate your body, deceive yourself. You hate your mind, for guilt has entered into it, and it would remain separate from your brother, which it cannot do. Just one more idea. Listen. Minds are joined. Bodies are not. Only by assigning to the mind the properties of the body does separation seem to be possible. And it is mind that seems to be fragmented and private and alone. Its guilt, which keeps it separate, is projected to the body, which suffers and dies because it is attacked to hold the separation in the mind and let it not know its identity. Listen, minds cannot attack, but it can make fantasies and direct the body to act them out. Yet it is never what the body does that seems to satisfy. Unless the mind believes the body is actually acting out its fantasies, it will attack the body by increasing the projection of its guilt upon itself. You're here with me. Now, these are what we call episodes. This is our Course in Miracles. The requirement of the possibility that you can engender within your own perspective, a self, a new arrangement about what you want to be in the perspectives of the illusion of body form. They call me the master teacher, and if you'll remember, on that first hour we began to give other mind identities to other body. I believe we spoke of Teilhard de Chardin, the great anthropologist, who represent the certainty of this communication from the idea of body formulation to the truth. Or Sri Aurobindo, who is with us, Saima, the lovely current teacher of the idea of the inevitability of the power of our minds to communicate. Obviously, the only reason that I used them was because, as you read with me in this idea of correspondences of our mind, that our body functions of definitions of ourself have precisely nothing whatsoever to do with the discovery that our minds are not communicating. We're using chapter 18 of the text of the Course in Miracles from Jesus of Nazareth, who has returned within a fabric of the conversion of our mind to show us in the mind training of ourself a procedure of the revision of the light that I am attempting to represent you in the illusion that we are a body form. If you remember in the first hour, I taught you in the Science American, are you a hologram? And I began to demonstrate to you that's so evident in chapter 18 that the reflections of light that you're getting in your determination of the incredible limitation you place on yourself in correspondence with your body form are in actuality entirely meaningless. So the workbook of A Course in Miracles is training us in a systematic way to continually recognize new situations of consciousness stories that we tell ourselves within frames of time that seem to represent, shall we use the word dream? Dreams about ourselves and our identity. How full we are with ideas of the stories that are being projected onto this screen, beginning with very fundamental ideas of consciousness association that we could communicate in descriptions of ideas we shared in separation and projected onto screens of other identities being represented by thought forms we had about ourselves that then organized into illusion, say to me, fractured, of fractured lights about our own minds in the projection of the idea that we are actually representing ourselves in this little infinite maze of containment where, remember when we stood together, as we're doing now out in this world, and just for a moment began to share deep within us the idea as we stood there of the love that we knew had to be somewhere, yet we were unable to find because of the, I'm going to teach science for a minute, an event horizon of energy that surrounded us in dark light form in the galaxy that in a literal sense prevented us from seeing the light. Into this situation came a single light mind of eternal life from outside the parameter, and thus not operating at the speed of light, which would be a mass determination of light association, with the certainty that the fundamental difficulty of the containment of the human condition is, in a particular sense, the totality of his inability to get a true reflection of who he is within his own mind. Emotionally, practice from the old man. I'm afraid. What? Of course. Why wouldn't you be afraid? The objective association of light you're getting back within your own mind, you listen, cannot not be memories contained within you of all the fear and all the loneliness and all of the death that you experience. I love to teach revelation from the idea that I could share, shall I use you, with you as a master teacher. I'm talking to you now. TLR that I spoke of, Saima, who we know, Aurobindo, all of the ideas that their new minds have shown them the solution. I was talking to, this morning to Sri Aurobindo, and he told me the story, and I remember it very well, and it's written up in the scriptures about how typically he was in jail. I might share that with you, dear ones. All of us, somewhere in time, have found ourselves incarcerated, okay, for ideas of, so was Aurobindo, incidentally, and so was I. But this was a particular story because Aurobindo was in despondency. He had attempted to teach the whole idea of yoga, the whole idea of light, the whole idea of everything he knew to be true. And let's face it, dear friends, the totality of light is not acceptable to any representation that is determined to be separate. But right at that moment of that devastation, a beautiful, here it is, light occasion came into his mind, and he was in jail, okay? And it was a moment of devastation. Do you see this with me? Would you like to hear this with me? I'll speak to you directly. You want to hear it? If you're in a human condition of yourself, it's impossible you are not living in memories of your idea that you're a body. Huh? Say to me, I'm a body. Yeah. Why? At this time and place, you appear to be a body. Yet it's impossible that contained and not contained within your formulation of memories about yourself are not, say to me, moments of light. Shall I teach you about some experiences that I know you're having in your mind within the relationship of the entirety idea you have about yourself in Sometimes Jesus calls it Gethsemane. He says you find yourself looking for the solution. You go out and you love, you share, you give, and all of a sudden, that wasn't it. It didn't work. It's dark. I'm going to die. I can't find the answer. There is no solution. At that moment, the answer will be there, because the power you can utilize at the entirety of the idea you're separate in all of space-time lasted just for a moment and had absolutely no effect on reality. Yet it seems to be a memory within your own mind. And Aravinda shared with me the joy of that light, because, and there's a little story that goes with this, that he was teleported to another association of time. Listen, this is a much commoner procedure than you're willing to admit with me. As we just told you in chapter 18, if everything is backward and upside down in light, any moment of the truth of you in any correspondence can actually place you in an entirely different situation in the longevity of time that you previously represented. The problem with it is you're going to bring your memories with you. But that does not belie the possibility of the regeneration of your body based on the conversion of memories that you hold concerning the fabric of the history of your body that's actually contained within your own mind. One of the original light episodes that Master Teacher had, and I'm teaching just for a moment, occurred almost 60 years ago. I found myself in an impossible situation of a devastation that occurred, I believe the anniversary is today, of the explosion of an atomic bomb. That was one of the most devastating ideas that could ever be experienced in the mind. I have in my mind the memory of sharing, you can hear me, with a brother, Japanese, the certainty that in any event the war was going to be over. But it did not subtract all of the conflict of memory that I held in my mind with a determination that in sharing the innocence of ourselves in moments of peace, we found a new correspondent that has been available to us since the beginning of time. Now, do I have a memory of the death of 150,000 incidences? Yes. What happens in the particulars of the human condition, the devastation of it is so immense, you listening, that you project it. I can share this with virtually everyone who's ever been in combat, or anyone who has ever suffered the conflict of the occasion of the illusion of conflict in the projection of self-identity of our minds, because these are moments of terror. And they can be points within your own mind that show you the inevitability that all of this containment of time, hearing, is nothing but a single memory of a moment of disaster that will represent to you the entirety of the possibility there's a new you available to you in the idea of what we just shared there. What occurred? I had in my mind a projection of heat and pain and defense because of what had been done to me or what I have done. The teaching of this Course in Miracles is inevitably one of forgiveness, very simply because the projection of your mind in ideas of who you are in the conflict of images that you maintain cannot give you a true picture of who you really are. This was in this idea of the hologram. This was in this idea that the mass or density contained within galactic association, your reflection is so limited that while you attempt to escape out into the universe, there's nowhere there is a guided principle in its entirety that can show you the individual solution, because that light right there has been buried deep within you. Now you're at this point with me, aren't you? And this is the sharing of all of the ideas of all of the history of man that have been written, in which they have been given body identities. You listen with me. My concern about your body identity of the illusion of you is zero. My concern is that there's a new bright way that we can accumulate ideas of new association of light that then become a part of our history of 60 years ago, when this body formulation had to undergo the experience that everyone who is in body form is continually undergoing in the loss of density of body association, that is the loneliness and pain and death that now appears to part of what you are in your own mind, that can't be escaped. Are you with me in this? We are memories that need to be changed within our memories of ourself. Look with me. Here's a new bright light reflection of I know who you are. And this is Sri Aurobindo. And this is Saima. And this is reflection of light. You're listening to me, T.L.R.D. Chardon, who says this is a new sphere of light, and the Pope told him to shut up. I'm not picking on anybody, but there's no way that you really want to admit that through my Savior Jesus Christ, that the salvation of the world not only depends on your mind, but it depends on the conversion of the formulation of your body form, which has held you in the illusion of objective associations of form. Okay, what's being revealed to us from our satellite now with this Course in Miracles? You're going to hear it? It's nothing but a new continuum of time. You are so long accustomed to the necessity of taking all of the old references, 40,000 years, taking all of them and projecting them into the future in order to protect yourself from the instant of devastation that I am offering you, which you refuse and subsequently suffer a moment of the loss of consciousness of your body. Practice. I'm going to heal you in light recognition of your mind. You will be delighted, now I'm teaching new correspondence of mind, with my determination of what you think must be this advent of I must be 77 years old. Or the idea of my memories of Waterloo, or the ideas of my memory of anything, Moses, my ideas of the Muhammad, my ideas of all the energies of association in my own mind are only defining what I want to believe within the prospect of what appears to be the illusion of my body formulation. The result of the idea that we are bodies cannot not be death and termination. You look with me? Whatever you think you're doing with your body at that moment right now, the light that we just found perfectly healed this old 77-year-old guy. Now, the idea that you are going to maintain the body rather than declare with me this from Jesus, say to me, I'm not a body. There, I'm free. Now, at that moment, within the aggregation of light, where our minds communicate, it had absolutely nothing to do with my body formulation. It's changing all the time in the light reflections of myself anyway. The moment I saw my mind as whole, the illusion of my body immediately assumed the love and forgiveness that I felt in my association with myself by laying down my defenses. This is called Sermon on the Mount, of my determination, okay, not to turn the other cheek when you attack me. I taught a little Jesus. My time is up in this first idea of the second hour of holograph. What I wanted you to see with me from personal experience, that you don't have to project out from you the guy who you're going to have to forgive. To recognize this new light image within your own mind, and he will take on new aspects, degrees of power of light, intervals where our separations collapse into black holes of ideas about ourselves, convert agencies of who we are. Shall I teach just for a moment? I'm going to be back to describe this, in which we come out of the black hole at the speed of light before we went in. Because the pertainments of the enclosure of the idea of a hologram cannot exclude the possibility of the using up of the black hole in its entirety. Yet obviously, as a human being, if you're trapped in your Gethsemane, the request for aid, even in the idea that God has forsaken you, is necessary within the logistics of the possibility of mind conversion that I just gave to you. So all of your future was based on your past. Now all of your future is on the certainty that your past has been brought into a present condition, and somewhere in time cannot not include the next 14,000 million years. So we'll recognize each other in this moment of love before we came into this procedure and after we love, and we'll say together, God has gone with us wherever we went in this pain. And we're going to share together now this moment of love within the dream where we escape from the mere idea that this would be what life is. Shall we say it together? God bless us, each and every one.
Thank you so much for this half hour. And let's open the microphones and share what our recognitions about the content of this presentation is. You want to start out, Dustin? Yeah.
First.
Yeah, thank you. I got one question what arises, it's not directly from the session, but when I think, when we have only one moment, the here and now, then we have to go one step further. There must be something quicker than light. And the physics are on looking to it already. It's called a principle of tachyonen and neutrinos. Because when you think, when the universe is, when the universe all belongs to us, and Jesus or God can be everywhere at the same time, it must be something quicker as light, and it must be something already every time, everywhere. And the physics will find out it in maybe 10 years or 1,000 years, but it cannot be different because otherwise the here and now would not work. And when we got support from existence, from Jesus or God, it is always in the here and now. It's not delayed. It's always here and now. And Jesus can support us in all over this planet and all over many other planets maybe. So this is not really about session, but it's just what I thought. There must be something quicker than light, and it has absolute no time to be everywhere every time.
No, the master teacher actually mentioned it when he didn't go into it. There are other videos where he goes into that theme. But the moment there's a realization or an experience of getting out before going in, it must be faster than light, because everything that is perceived in the dream, the entire dream scenario is only seen in its form association by the speed of light, those 186,000 miles per second, now or 300,000 kilometers per second. And that's how the dream scenario is perceived. But the moment we actually go into the experience of timelessness, because speed needs time, it is the distance and the time combined. But the moment we go into timeless experience, there cannot be a limitation of speed of light. That's a limitation also, how he mentioned it, that we're putting limitations we place on ourselves. And the time and the speed is one of those limitations. So this is a completely correct recognition that you are having, that there's something in you that is way faster than the speed of light, which is literally you thinking with God. No? I mean, that's just the one aspect, and I'm sure that the Karen, Jorian, and everybody has their own perspective of how to answer that question.
Yeah, I think you're answering it exactly as it needs to be answered. It's really the difference. Thorsten is right on. It's really the difference between just being and thinking. Like the human thought requires there's a direct interconnection with speed of light, because it requires that light, to project and to experience separation. And yet, if we didn't, without that thought, that human thinking, it's just being as God. And then you're totally, as far as not exiting the black hole by before you go in and after you came out, it means that this never ever happened, essentially, that the dream was never real. And that's the final truth, is that we can't possibly be where a human mind thinks it is at any time, because none of it has ever been true. And when you finally land in that recognition, I mean, we are already home in heaven. And yet it sure doesn't, by being wrapped up with the ideas of the dream and the attachment to the dream and physical separation, sure, we can go ahead and pretend or play that we're not there, but we're already there. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it was coming to me in a little bit of different words, but the same idea, the same experience beyond the concept. What I was receiving was this idea of electric circuitry, where there's energy within energy, but all there is that now. So all time is simultaneously occurring, but the only reality is in that recognition through the holy instant of the now moment. And it kind of goes into what came to me to open with as far as forgiveness and non-judgment. And with non-judgment, there's no projection. And Jesus tells us if we forgive, this will disappear. So basically, he was talking about, I see only the past, whatever the past means, because it's illusion. And that's then projected into the imagined future. And the only escape from that, our salvation from that, is the recognition that I am creation and love in now, and that nothing ever happened, that it's all an aspect of projection and imagination. And then that, of course, is not real. So that's why bodies seemingly disintegrate, because it's an image, part of a fragmented image of the split mind. He was also saying there's nothing outside of the kingdom of heaven. And the kingdom of heaven is the Christ consciousness, which is an activity of mind, the mind of Christ. And all healing comes at the level of mind, because nothing else really exists. What else was he? I got a lot from what he was saying. It was just coming through that the
gosh.
Christ consciousness is everywhere, and we're the ones that reject it by our misperception and the meaning that we give to it. And ultimately, the body is a neutral thing, just receiving directions from this mind. So there's nothing other than everything. And that recognition in the now moment of the creation that I am is the escape and is the healing. And we do that through the holy instant. And we do that through the acceptance of the surrendered thought. Spirit, help me see this differently, moving into that space of the higher mind, true perception, miracle mindedness, where we receive what's real. Thanks. It came to me anyway. Thank you.
I just want to follow up on the surrendered thought idea, because I mean, this was a real tough one to really take in. I mean, first of all, before I even say that, he said something else that was interesting, and that was our salvation depends not only on our mind. I thought this was pretty cool. It depends not only on our mind, but on the conversion of our body. And he was talking about the body formulation going through a conversion of loss of density ultimately. And that would occur through surrender of thought, the thought that I am the body, that fractured and separated thing, and being willing. And I'm telling, this is the frightening part. And he talked about that, how frightening it is. This is the frightening part for the human mind, is to go ahead and to enter into that point of devastation, because it really is the release of everything we've been trying to hold on to. And however that devastation can occur, he said that he projected of heat and pain, you know, when he had that experience as a result of the atomic bomb. And I mean, it can be a moment of terror. And even in the obstacles to peace, I don't know if it's the fourth obstacle where it talks about that moment of terror, and you just go ahead and you either go ahead and bow down to the stone, you know, the rock or whatever, or else you will finally ask for a total release from God, for that light to come in, which came in for Sri Aurobindo, was he talking about, or was it one of the other, maybe it was Sri, but anyways, so that light comes in that moment of such painful incarceration. The human mind is in total incarceration. And because we it's like we are, in a sense, victim, well, he says, a victim of our memories. And we keep, those memories have got to go through an experience of release. And we're not really knowing how that happens, but we have to be in a state of willingness, and that can take you to a point of devastation or a surrender. And either do that, or else you go through the final death experience of the body. So we either go through a conversion of that physical body, allow that to happen, and that might take you to that moment. It does, sounds like it, can take you to a point of such devastation, or else you go through the death of the body experience. So it was a pretty amazing video. It was pretty intense video.
I thought so.
Yeah.
And also that goes along with what Joel, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a thought about that too, because it's so important or so extraordinary what you just mentioned also, Karen. Huh? That moment of devastation where he gave the example of being incarcerated, huh? And it's and the connection of that offer of this full light, let's say, or of this perfection of light. Huh? I mean, we all know, the moment there's a huge light insertion, we can call it, or there's this entering into, let's say, a light experience that doesn't even allow anymore to see a world outside oneself, is there is also the denial there in the mind. It's there because everything is then in the mind. With the increase of the light within still the human experience, there's the increase of the denial. And that denial is of course the basis, because everything is happening only in the mind, of that devastation. And it is actually nicely explained in that first part that he used also beyond the body of chapter 18, because it talks about the projection of the guilt onto the body. and he said, you seem to hate the body, but indeed you are hating your mind. And so it needs to come really to clarity that minds are joined and everything is happening in the mind. And so the moment that there is this understanding also, and he talked about that later on, of that reflection of the memories of the past, and said there will be the reflections of the fear, and that is what is your objective reality. If that is realized, okay, this is actually happening in my mind, and I'm responsible for that because I'm still holding onto a reality of limited thought forms of fear, and therefore I still see fear reflections in the world or in my mind. Then it becomes clear, or it opens up to that. Why is that so? What is there underneath? What is there that I need to look at and transform? And of course, it's the guilt. It's the guilt. It's literally being guilty for who I am in truth as God created me. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that's exactly it. The projection of the guilt is the judgment, which the illusion follows from. And I like when Karen was talking about that before, it was coming to me about Joel and the whole idea of emptying out so that the Christ consciousness can fill you up. And of course, we'll talk about that. I take second place to gain the first. And that's ultimately the same thing, this surrender of thought. And I know a lot of people will say something about the word surrender. It doesn't appear in the Course, but Jesus does tell us, let us. Let us means allow, means give up what you think, and allow something else to express itself. And also when you were talking about the light episodes, and all of us have had experiences with that, when we have connected to that identity that we truly are, the I am presence. And that recognition that, if I lost my train of thought, when years ago in meditation, I heard very clearly, the more you identify with your spiritual identity, the easier the transition will be. And as you were speaking, Karen, ultimately, if we accept this sphere of light that we are, then there's no place else to go. The body just disintegrates and disappears through the forgiveness, which is, as you said, was the non-judgment. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, this was tremendous today. It was tremendous.
And it is the guilt that is, he was talking about the tooth and seemingly attacking the body. Né? If it is an incarceration or if it is whatever form of devastation, whatever form of sickness or idea of death, it is that idea of the guilt attacking and projected upon the body.
And very simply, the guilt is merely listening to that fearful voice of the ego, that unreal, incessant thought that's making the Son of God guilty, the war against yourself, the constant defense and attack. So we just recognize all we have to do is lay down the shield and the sword and just move into that space of grace, which is all that's there anyway. And he was saying something about that, and it came to me also that the Christ is everywhere. So beyond all the concepts, anything we want to see outside of us, say the war or whatever have you, someone the other night was speaking about, the homeless laying on the ground. Beyond that concept is the Christ. We just need to ask, Spirit, let me see this with your vision. What's really there? And we know the only thing that's ever there is the Christ consciousness ready to reveal itself as we open our mind and receive it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
When you were just talking about like a homeless person lying on the street and being the concern, or just what could be anything, someone seemingly starving, someone being homeless on the street. Lillian DeWaters has a beautiful book where she talks about of course, she's in alignment with Joel and all of this, but that if you would finally just recognize, the only truth is I am, it's only you and God. If you could finally just recognize that you truly are dreaming, and you see something like that apparently outside yourself, if you were lying down sleeping and in that dream, and in your dream there's someone lying down the street, if someone were to come up to you and try to fix it by putting some food next to you to give to the person starving, it's not going to fix the person starving, because this person starving is in your dream. He's not. It's like, finally, you got to wake up. That's the only solution, is to finally be aware. And this is something too. I think I don't know, Matt Kahn. I once in a while I've listened to him. He said once, when you see anything that is devastating, he says the answer is, like, for instance, you see the homeless person on the street, celebrate that that all homeless people are being provided with all the care that they need. And with every obstacle or devastation that would come up in your mind, celebrate the opposite, because it's happening, and to just be in the truth that that's really happening, that everything is in the light of God, and that it's all healed and whole. So just go to the other side and celebrate. The celebration is what takes you home, finally.
And I think Joel emphasizes the idea of the beholder, because as the beholder, this is all separate and apart from that I am presence, and the recognition that the ego is separate and apart from the truth of who we are. So ultimately, if we're witnessing some homeless or whatever, somebody suffering, we're an ego. So the answer always is, Spirit, help me see this differently and move into that space. And I think the Course will talk about observer, witness, but Joel emphasizes the beholder. And in that space, you've separated your true self from the non-reality. And that's the only way we can really heal anything, is by raising our vibration to that fourth dimensional consciousness, that awareness of truth, and just remaining there. Because as you said, buying into the illusion just is, okay, maybe we'll change an illusion, better illusion for a little while, we'll give them food, but ultimately something else will surface, because it's all here to show us its meaninglessness and the non-reality, so we can go home. So,
And I just want to mention that I did listen to a Joel talk recently where he was saying, he said, he does teach, exactly as you're talking about. He says, it doesn't mean that I would go so far. If I saw the person and I had a nice warm blanket to give the person, I would still go ahead and give them a nice warm blanket. That's more like Jesus with Sermon on the Mount, it's just to take care of your brother. And I mean, even if we seem to be in a dream, act with love within the dream, be an extension of love.
exactly, what's the loving thing to do here? And he mentions in Thunder of Silence, in the last part, the part 3 is all about the Sermon on the Mount, and forgiveness of your brother. And he emphasizes those thoughts and ideas on that. But yeah, I mean, if your brother comes to you and you see somebody, you don't not drive them to the pharmacy, seemingly they need medication, but you maintain the truth in your mind. And even last night, a few people brought to my attention, I'll be quick here, about can you hold me in the light, whatever they were saying. And it was about 4 people. And ultimately, Joel's practice is that we drop the claim, we drop the name, and we just move into that Christ consciousness that I am, recognizing that that's beyond all concepts, and that's all there is. So there's no sending light, there's just a realization of oneness and of truth, and that's what raises the vibration. Thanks.
Yeah, I see it also really as an offer and opportunity to live in the resurrection. It's the theme of the resurrection. How do I live the resurrection with these situations as they present themselves? And if we really look back to the past, we have made up probably most of our monasteries and caves in the Himalayas as a solution. Okay, if I don't see that image, then I'll be fine, and I can sit on my self-realization. And of course, it didn't work and brought us back. No? So living in the resurrection, in beyond the concept of that, will be exactly as you were both just sharing it, to be completely certain about the recognition of the truth and realization of the truth. And yet, of course, also share whatever needs to be shared and taking care on the human level as being a complete 100% human, helpful love extension, and giving everything away and sharing everything. And that's how, because I see it from the perspective, how do I basically experience myself in the liberation of the limited concept in my own mind? And I cannot be liberated if I'm not giving everything and holding back. No? So even on that level of the complete illusionary picture, I need to experience myself as a totality of a giver, of extending the light and love and peace. No? And yet I can stay in my mind any moment completely certain and completely true to the truth, no? And not doubting that at all, and not mixing it up with some half reality. No? And I think there is really the experience also, okay, I do live that, what the teaching says. No?
Yeah, that was just beautiful, and that was just perfect. And thanks for that, because it's been coming into my mind lately also about recognizing, when we ask what's the loving thing to do, there's no human effort involved. Basically, you follow what's given you of what's the loving thing to do. We share our thoughts and ideas, and we just become this extension of love, but without effort, without struggle, just allowing the flow of the Christ to work through us as instruments. And I really believe that's the practice, and the practice of practicing the presence that Joel talks about, just being connected at all times with that truth of being, and allowing that being and that love to just express through us without thinking about whether it's analyzing, efforting. Just relax. I rest in God. Thanks so much. That was
Thank
perfect.
you.
One last thing. So that goes back to the idea of just being, you know, instead of, if we can, like what Thorsten started off with, no more speed of light, just, you know, if we can just finally just be like, if your heart just moves you to do something or be something, you don't think about it. You just, you know, you're just in that action of being, and instead of thinking through, which sometimes I do think too much. I am in the mission. I need to
We all
release that.
do.
But that's the whole idea of conversion of memory, which will result in conversion of the body form too. The release of density of the body comes with the conversion of memory and the release of all the memories, which I don't know how well you can do that in a monastery, as Devavan was talking about, you know, because without going, you probably could to a certain extent, but like the Course says, you need to learn to use these lessons, not only when you're in a peaceful place, but to be able to take them with you into the more conflictual situations and still stay within that peace. So
Absolutely. And that was so important also, what you did say about the monastery or cave, because it's not like we're trying to deny or run away from anything. We're just, like he said in the video, renewing our minds. And we do that through trust, which is accepting our identity as the Christ. And Joel always says, even if you are in Christ awareness, Christ consciousness for, you know, say like 80 or 90% of the time, the rest of the time you are dealing with what we seemingly see. So there's always an opportunity. And Jesus tells us in the Course, the ego speaks first. So once we're aware of that, then we catch it. We catch it. Okay. I want to see it differently.
it's like this
Beautiful.
this video was so packed, you know,
It was-
that it's like we're already over our hour.
Oh, yeah.
Gonna-
Sorry. Devavan has other meetings.
No,
Beautiful,
it's
beautiful,
good.
everyone. Are we all
Thank you
good?
all.
Thank you so much. So
Yeah.
beautiful. Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank you so
for your
much,
love.
Thank
everyone. I have
you. I
still a
love you
song to
guys.
sing.
Yeah.
Love you too.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Thank you.